Is the lighting on?
Hello, hello. Yeah, I think the lighting's okay. Hi. If somebody could comment, I think we're live now and the lighting's okay and the audio's okay, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Oh, let me turn that off for starters. One second, guys. Just 1 second, I'm sorry. Whoops. Window. Okay. Okay, cool. So sound is good. Vancouver can see me. Robert, how are you? Cool. All right. So without further ado, recognizing that not everybody's going to be able to join us at 9 o'clock at night Eastern time, and it's 9 o'clock in the morning here in Singapore. I just want to share with you this guy. I owe him all the hospitality and also showing me the deal that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But this is his, he calls it a shop house here in Singapore. I would call it more like a single family home or a brownstone. We're actually going to be filming a little bit of an episode on, he's going to list his place here in Singapore on Airbnb after spending some time with me in Bali, and we'll talk about that on future episodes. But anyway, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to John and say thanks so much. Really been a great pleasure and treat to hang out with you and reconnect. And that's sort of the power of social media, right? John and I graduated Cornell University in 1991. We went our separate ways. We reunited in about 1992, 93. John was instrumental in getting me a job at the Mercantile Exchange and the Board of Trade, which started my trading career. And then he moved, I guess, to Hong Kong or Singapore, not exactly sure, far away. I continued and then went to business school and so on. And then we sort of lost our separate ways, had families and kids and so on. And then through Facebook, primarily Facebook and now Instagram as well, we've sort of reconnected. He told me about his place in Bali. I was looking for something to, really get me through a difficult, challenging period in my life. That sounded perfect. And so here we are, fast forward, he invited me. I hit him, hard for the entire thing. He's like, come as long as you want. And now he's regretting it. But it's been really, really great to reconnect with an old friend. And as often happens, and the message here about social media is being open, it's extending your network. You never know what opportunities strike. And that's exactly what's happened here. So I've enjoyed almost 3.5 weeks in Bali. Now I'm in Singapore at his house. And while we were in Bali, I was always looking for an investment opportunity. I think I put that on the Facebook group before. Whenever I travel, I have my eyes and ears open and I'm looking for an opportunity. Whether one shows up or not, I learn. And in Bali, in particular, going to Bali, I thought there was a really good opportunity, but there's all sorts of restrictions. For instance, there can be no foreign owners, right? So the land technically must stay owned by Balinese. And then there's a whole, what I'm going to say is ancient history, and I'm not trying to minimize it in terms of no disrespect, but apparently like when somebody passes away, the husband owns the land and it doesn't go to the wife because like females can't own it. And so there's this system, it works really well for them, but it makes it very challenging for a foreigner to own property. And I learned that rather quickly. And John and his partner Olivier, about 8 or 9 years ago, Olivier's married to an Indonesian. They found some property, they were opportunistic, they bought it, and they've been sitting on it for years. And I was traveling with my drone. I offered up, to try and add some value to the relationship, so I'm not just crashing at his villa for a month. I said, well, why don't we take some aerial shots? You have some nice mountain views and some ocean views. Let's go out there and see what we can do. And we captured it all. And I still wasn't contemplating any sort of deal. And neither were they. They were just thinking they were taking some aerial shots to create a website to list it for sale. And then we spent a little bit more time talking about sort of Airbnb and what I'm doing, and things started to fall together. We saw some other people that had owned some properties and had been on Airbnb. I traveled throughout Bali without John to Ubud and stayed at an Airbnb. And it just sort of became evident that, Indonesia is the 4th largest country in the world. How many people?
200 million.
200 million people here in Indonesia. And Bali is sort of the crown jewel. It's where Everybody wants to come and go and vacation, and it's absolutely gorgeous. The food is great. It's safe. The people are friendly. You know, when you take a look at the list of the things that I look for in a foreign or remote vacation opportunity, vacation rental opportunity, Bali checks the box, with the exception of the restrictions in the land ownership. And so we started to talk about it and be opportunistic and open-minded. And, you know, as it turned out, the reason they were thinking about selling the land is that Olivier in particular needed some cash flow. And so by selling a piece of his equity ownership, we could relieve the cash flow requirements that he had and still hold on to a really valuable asset. And that was sort of the first plan. And then it was kind of like, well, why don't we Airbnb it and try and monetize that? And that started off slow, like, well, we'll put up a couple of different smaller units. And as these things tend to occur, the more we thought about it, the more we researched, the more we studied it, and the more excited we got. The project has grown in size and scope, and now we've got multiple different tiers. You know, we're not going to be able to afford to do it all at once, and we want to be prudent about it and leg into it. So we'll start on the smaller side, but we're working with, and I have identified and had meetings with, very early stage meetings, but with some top talent in Bali that have a long history and experience in creating sort of the aesthetic that we're going for, understand the vision that we have for the resort, if you want to call it that. And resort's the wrong word, but how about like little community? And that's, you know, ecologically friendly, be mindful and respectful of the community and the neighbors and the prior owner. I have photos and video of her. And John likes to say, and he's so right, or Olivia actually said it to John, you know, she has more in common with like her ancestors of 200 years prior than with her children. And so we're really mindful and respectful of that. And we want to be sustainable and repeatable. And Olivier owns a recycling facility, the only one on the island of Bali. And so we want to do things like compost and use solar energy where possible, and not only cater to the surfers and their community, but also a lot of surfers are into yoga, and those that don't surf, we want to service with yoga. And so this whole thing quickly became a lot bigger than what it started as. And I think my point is just to be opportune and open-minded. And I'll tell you, you know, this is way outside of my comfort zone. It's bigger than anything I've ever done. The challenges are greater. Bali is about 24 hours away from New York City, where I currently live. So that's a challenge. But I don't think it's insurmountable. In fact, I have properties, as you know, all over the United States, and just the proximity doesn't mean that I'm there any more frequently, or if there were an issue, it's not like I'm getting on an airplane and going to Colorado. So my initial reluctance in terms of the unknown, the culture, not owning the land, the distance, working with partners. I've never really done that before. We're going to film a video, John and I, on sort of teamwork and what that means. And just thinking about all of this stuff, and then stopping, pausing, and thinking about the opportunity set and my why, which, you know, I've spent a lot of time talking about my why. Like, this is exactly what I want to be doing. Now, I happen to have thought it would be in a year or two down the road, when a few things are settled in my life. I thought it would probably be in a place that I was more comfortable with, like Costa Rica. I'm a Costa Rican citizen. I speak the language. But what I'm realizing is life isn't binary for me. It's not either or. I don't have to do Bali or Costa Rica. I can do Bali well and do Costa Rica in a year or two or 5 or whatever. And so I'm really looking forward to this experience. I'm really looking forward to learning an awful lot and sharing it with you, the viewers, on short-term rental secrets. I'm hoping this is inspirational for some that are facing similar sort of scary prospects, or not really ready to, you know, take it to the next level. So follow me, watch me, learn from my mistakes. I'm going to be learning an awful lot. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. And then the next time I do it, I'll make fewer. I'll make different mistakes, and I'll learn from them. But, you know, the main thing here is to learn and experience and put myself out there. And I'm doing it in real time. I mean, I'm coming to you live, YouTube live in Singapore. There's a whole host of questions. There's very few answers, but I wanted to document it and sort of look back on this time. And who knows, maybe at some point in the future, I'll have a whole empire of these, you know, little eco villages of 10, 12, 14 villas with plunge pools and yoga. And you got to start small and figure it out, but you have to take the risk. So that's a little bit of the update. I'm going to be filming a lot of content as we go along. I took some B-roll of the land. As I indicated earlier, I have some drone footage and some aerial footage, and I've got some topographical surveys, and just really, really pumped and excited. And once I put that sort of fear in check, and I think it's really natural, so I stopped and thought about it. I used the technique in mindfulness. If any of you have ever studied that, I have a good friend of mine also from Cornell who's a mindfulness coach. And the basic premise is, you know, your mind is a tool. It's at your disposal, much like your arm, right? Like I choose to flex my arm or not. If I don't do anything with it, then it just hangs still. But if I decide to pick something up, then I use my arm as a tool. And the brain is basically the same thing, right? So as soon as I realized that I was going into a negative place and coming up with 10 million reasons why it shouldn't work, or now's not the right time, or I've never worked with the partners, or can't own the land, all of those things, I stopped and I paused and I said, am I just going to a dark place, or is there something really here? And that was empowering. And then I really tried to think positively, use my mind for a positive purpose, and say, what is my goal? What is my purpose? What is my why? What do I want to do? Where do I want to spend my time and energy? What do I want to do with my resources? What is the legacy I want to leave for my kids? What is the impact I want to have on the YouTube channel and the audience? And that's to inspire and educate and help people achieve their goals. The people that have been meeting here in Bali are using Airbnb. They're now watching the YouTube channel. They think it's fantastic. And so, you know, your support is actually encouragement. And so I feed off that, and I hope you feed off of some of this message and it resonates with you and helps you take, you know, small calculated risks. I don't encourage anybody to do anything absurd, and probably 95% of the people on the planet would look at this risk that I'm looking at and say, it doesn't work for this, that, the other, blah, blah, blah. And that's great for them. But for me, it's great. And so I needed to pause and catch myself in that negative thought, use mindfulness techniques, redirect it, and realize just how positive it is. So that's a little bit of the update. Like I said, we're going to be filming a lot of content. I'm really excited to just have the whole journey captured. You know that I will do that. So I'm now looking at questions. What are the different tiers you are planning for growth? So I think the way that we're looking at it, and again, this is really early days, this entire concept has gone from they were selling the land to we're going to develop the land in the last, call it 2 weeks. We've had probably 4 or 5 meetings. We've looked at antique joglos as sort of the look and feel. These are Javanese structures that people used to live in. And what's interesting is, as the Javanese children predominantly inherit their homes from their families, as the people pass away, they don't want to live in these traditional antique sort of teak homes with open walls. They want more modern convenience, which is understandable. But these antique homes are absolutely gorgeous and so romantic, and the aesthetic is great. And so we want to go ahead and use that to be true to the land and the culture. And we're going to be recycling and renovating some of these homes, and they're going to be key components. So the first tier is going to be a common reception area. This is going to be somewhere between a very small boutique hotel and an Airbnb. So unlike the Airbnbs that I currently run, where you just walk into my single family home, there is going to be a reception area. There is going to be some communal space, like a pool that people can use, a yoga studio that people can use, facility to get like fresh juices and coffees and things like that. And so the first phase is going to be figuring out the land use, where the parking is, where the solar is, where all the mechanicals go, where the yoga studio goes, where the reception area goes, and what that looks like, what the feel is, and then put together probably somewhere between 3 to, call it 6 of these initial, what are they called? Limosans? Limosans. So I'm learning a whole new language here. Limosans are like joglos, except a little bit different and a little bit smaller. And so I think phase 1, and this is all subject to change. Realize this is live. This isn't well thought out. I'm not scripted. I'm just like shooting from the hip here. And we've hired somebody, or I think we've hired somebody, who's going to really help us with the design. So it's all subject to change. But the concept right now would be to get all of that sort of common area taken care of, and then 3 to 5 limosans, which would be like 1-bedroom villas. and then start to rent those out, see how that's working, see what people like. If that size and shape and price point is attractive, then we'll continue with that. We think there's more upscale opportunities. Maybe we go into a 2-bedroom villa with private plunge pools, and potentially the third stage would be even larger, maybe something that's like a whole private house at the top with the ocean view. But we're going to stage into it just so that we've got, you know, the learning that we're doing, we're putting to work. Learning so much from your channel. We are starting our own adventure October 1st. Awesome, Dan. Good luck, my man. That sounds great. Where's your adventure going to be? And am I primarily looking outside of the U.S. for expansion? And if so, does any of the increasing U.S. regulatory environment factor into that? Or there? Okay. You know, I don't think that I'm primarily looking outside of the United States for fear of the United States. In fact, it's just actually much more difficult to do cross-border work. Yeah, there's all sorts of tax filings and documents and things like that. Totally legal as long as you do it legally. It just means that you have to have good advice and a good team and a good, you know, tax accountant and so on. So I have all that. I'm really fortunate for that. It is a headache, but you can do it. So I'm not letting that. That's like one of those negative things. Like, oh, do I want to file all that? And it's going to cost me more. And what if I miss it? And I don't, you know, I don't want to do anything illegal. So I'm just going to make that a strength of mine and just make sure that's really buttoned up. The reason for my desire to do things more internationally is, as I think about my future and what it is that I want to do, as much as I love the United States and there's some really amazing places to be and visit in the United States, it's also limiting to one continent. And I find a lot of the things that I'm drawn to are a little bit more exotic, more far-flung, perhaps even less expensive. I find the culture really intriguing and interesting, and the language and the looks and the smell. And so, you know, I have a certain finite number of days on this planet, and I intend to use that last word really intelligently, planet. And so I'm just viewing things on a global basis. And if I select everything in the United States because it's the best of breed that suits me, then it'll be in the United States. But if I find a great opportunity in Costa Rica or in Bali, or, you know, anywhere else, I'm certainly going to look at it. Let me see if there's any more questions here. Colorado Springs, that's awesome. I have a place in Crested Butte, Colorado, and I absolutely love it. I'm doing quite well with it. I try and get there as much as possible. I'm actually considering, when I get back in September, I was going to go to my place in Crested Butte, Colorado, but have decided instead to go look in Jackson Hole because I want a little bit more diversification. And to be honest, Jackson Hole is zero income taxes and zero estate taxes. So as I start to think about my future and my legacy and estate planning and so on, as far as I can tell, you can't beat zero taxes. Jackson Hole is world class. I love skiing there. I've never been there in the summer, and so that's why I'm going to go there in September. Do I set up a LLC right away and put several properties in it? So historically, and you know, use this as a guide, not necessarily like a methodology. It's worked for me. Maybe you can learn from it, but I don't advocate this. It's just sort of what I've done. I've always had to take loans out on a personal basis for mortgages. I haven't found lenders that are willing to loan to a small business real estate entrepreneur like myself. So I always have recourse loans, meaning I'm personally guaranteeing them. And then what I do, and I'm in the process of doing that now, is I create LLCs in every state that I operate in, a locally domiciled LLC. So I have one in Alabama, I have one in Colorado, I have some in New York. And then I transferred with the deed, and you know, my accountants handle it. We transfer the ownership into the LLC, but I've created individual LLCs for each property to reduce liability, and then a holding company, master LLC, that owns all of the other LLCs. Complicated, complex, expensive, but you know, I'm looking at this seriously, and I view my role as a father with a desire to leave a meaningful legacy and estate to my kids seriously. And so I don't want some, you know, idiot on Airbnb doing something stupid that's through no fault of my own taking me down. So I don't anticipate that's happening. I don't think it's a big risk, but that's the thing about risk, is once you identify it, I like to sort of cross it off and mitigate it as much as possible and not worry about it. So I'll put a little bit of thought and energy, legal resources, and some money into that protection, if you will. Um, what are your top 5 cities, and would you recommend to invest in the outside of U.S.? How will you identify the investment opportunity? Well, top 5 cities, you know, I'm sorry, this is Don. Hey, Don. Top 5 cities is a really personal thing, and I think Charles and I have actually recorded a fair amount of content on this. We haven't shared it with the channel. You know, to be really brutally honest, Charles is in charge. So he releases what he wants to release. He directs, you know, he's got this library of content. I'm sure it'll come your way at some point. Maybe we'll chop it up or we'll do something else. But the basic premise, Don, is you've got to know your why. And the reason that you have to know your why is because, pardon the French, but shit happens. Something's going to happen. You're going to have a flood, a basement issue, a small fire. And if you're in the wrong city or you're in Airbnb for the wrong reasons, it could derail your entire vision. So watch the video that I formed, that we released called My 15-Year Plan. It talks about my why. And so for me, my 5 cities is a very personal decision. And when something happens to my property in Bali or in Colorado, because it's so like deeply entrenched in my personal belief and something that I want to do, I'll just overcome it. Kind of like if you have kids and they do something silly, you still love them and eventually you forgive them and you teach them a lesson and then you love them again. But if you know, we're looking at some stranger's kid on the sidewalk, you might behave entirely differently. So it's really important that you pick your cities that have personal meaning to you. For me, the cities that I'm finding inspirational right now, or the countries, include Bali and Costa Rica. I'm really drawn to them. I'm interested in Jackson Hole. I don't have the resources to expand into all of these different markets, and just follow along. You'll see how I do. You know, it's fully transparent. I'm going to do whatever I can while I'm enjoying it. And the beautiful thing is I love going to these places. So, you know, the due diligence work and the development work and the checking in on the team work, you know, work for me, that's what I like to do. So I'm quite lucky and grateful about that. Let's see. Vancouver housing market is one of the most expensive housing markets in the world. They regulate Airbnb. Look, I think that the regulation and the regulatory environment is really under development, and that's both the risk and an opportunity. I'm sitting here in Singapore with John and his unbelievable house that, you know, he will definitely be able to rent on Airbnb. He will be able to rent it more than he thinks and for more money than he thinks. And that's sort of the same experience that everyone on this channel has had. And his place is fantastic. So the challenge that he has is doing so legally or in that gray area. And that's a different personal decision for everybody. But I think that the opportunity for regulation is great, because once we know what the rules are, then we know how to play by them. And since I'm trying to do something that's sustainable and repeatable and leave a legacy, I need to know what the rules are, and they can't change. So right now we're in that uncomfortable period. I would suggest that nobody do anything stupid to get yourself like locked out or blocked out of the opportunity set. So for instance, my place in Long Island, it's really hard. You can't rent for less than 2 weeks. I think that's what it is. And somebody came to me and said, I'd like to take it for the season, Memorial Day to Labor Day. And so I looked at that, and I looked at the Airbnb regulation. I said, okay, you know what? While they sort out the regulatory environment, I'm going to play within the rules, and I rented it out for the season. At the end of this season, as the rules become more clear or they change or they evolve, I'll make a different decision when the time is right. And that's the beautiful thing about real estate, right? You can sell, you can hold, you can go short-term rental, you can go long-term rental, you can renovate, you can add on, you can do like whatever, but it's in our control. You just need to have a long-term vision of your why and what you want to do, and then be proactive and thoughtful and intelligent about it and make it a reality. What is your occupancy rate in Crested Butte? Are you getting year-round rentals? I'm not getting year-round rentals, really. My rule of thumb for me personally in any vacation rental is that it has to have at least 2 seasons. And so Colorado has a very active summer season. That was surprising to me. We actually do better in the summer than we do in the winter. And we do so well in the summer plus the winter that it's a terrific investment for us. And I absolutely love going there. It's a great home. In fact, I'm in the process of getting divorced, and that one home on an investment property is one thing that we both agree that we are going to continue to co-own. So even through this difficult personal period, the opportunity and the return and the environment is so attractive that instead of us carving it up or selling it or one of us getting it, we've decided to work mutually together. And so 2 seasons is good enough for us. We do get some off-season rentals. You know, somebody wants to get away for a weekend, but it's not meaningful. We just worry about if the city sets down all Airbnb listings. The backup plan, like I talked about, is then just go to full, 12-month rentals, sell the home, do whatever you need to do. But, real estate's been around as long as humans have been around. It's a real asset. If you're intelligent and entrepreneurial about it, you'll figure your way out. I personally don't think the risk of it being shut down completely almost anywhere is realistic in the long term. My basic premise is that governments are here to serve people in democratic society, and if the people want a certain thing, over time it'll gravitate towards that. That length of time may vary. It might be really quick adoption, it might be really slow, but there'll be pressure, and people are going to do it. They may break the law and do it illegally until it becomes legal, but I just don't foresee an environment where Airbnb is like outlawed in, a significant portion of the world. I just don't see it. I could be totally wrong, but I don't see that at all. Are you able to share with us some of the metrics Charles used to identify the potential market? Actually, Charles wasn't involved in the deal, and we have filmed some stuff about how to take a look at opportunities like this. I'm not sure that we've really made it as simple as I want to do. So likely when I get back, we're going to talk very, very matter-of-factly, just sort of back of the envelope things that I look for. There's plenty of online tools and calculators, and if you use Google, you'll come up with a whole wealth of things, but you have to be a rocket scientist to actually use that, and I'm not sure that that's that helpful. So what I'm really trying to do is come up with like the 6 key things that I look for back of the envelope, and then once you know that you're onto a winner or a good idea, then you can drill down and spend your time and energy. Let's see here. By the way, I just want to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy day and night and participating and asking these questions. It's a great community that we've built here, and I'm really honored to participate. I hope you guys are having great success in your businesses and see opportunity, and it's changing your lives, having an impact, because that's actually quite meaningful to me personally. As you know, all the YouTube channel stuff and so on, we do it because I think it's really important, and I think we're good at it, and I think it's good information. We love to share it, and so the feedback that we get back, the gratitude, the comments about changing your lives and impacting your kids and stuff like that, watching the subscription channel grow, that's success for us. So we really appreciate your following and your time and your attention. We know it's valuable, so thank you. HOAs, I haven't. I'm currently in Colorado. There's a homeowners association, and it's not a subdivision, but it is governed, and we have communal snow plowing and so on. Crested Butte is an area where there's some regulatory proposals. I tend not to freak out in advance, but they've embraced it. And so one of the things that I look at, I think it was Don asked, when I look at a property as potential investment, is do they tax short-term rentals? Counterintuitive, most people would say ooh, I don't want to be in a place that's taxed. To me, that's a huge positive. Once the community has embraced short-term rentals enough to tax the short-term rentals, what happens, it's like a drug. It quickly becomes part of their budget, and that's how they plan, the road expansion, the school, that tax dollar is critical to their budget planning, and therefore it's less likely for it to go away. So that's one thing that I look for. And so to that end, the HOA that I have in Crested Butte, Colorado, even though they like to talk and propose new things, at the end of the day, they like the revenue that the short-term rentals bring in. And I think ultimately one of the goals of this channel, and one of the goals that we should have as hosts, is to enhance our community, to be better neighbors, to be better hosts, to be better representatives of our community, of our district, of our nation, whatever it is. And if we can elevate all of that, then the scariness of Airbnb sort of goes away. And the reason that people don't want it is like, not in my backyard, not as my neighbor, not in my backyard. But who doesn't want a really great neighbor next door, right? Filled with people that are respectful and mindful and spending money in the community, putting tax dollars to work, going to the local restaurants, giving tips to the waiters. Like, that's what makes a community. And so if we can get really good guests and we service them well and we all elevate our standards, it just works. And that's one of the main driving factors behind this channel. Is not that I'm the end all be all or, you know, more knowledgeable than anybody else, but I'm having quite a bit of success. I'm enjoying it a lot. And I'd like to share with you what's working and what's not. And at the same time, on our Facebook group, if you guys aren't members of the Facebook group, please go ahead and request access to Short-Term Rental Secrets. It's a private group on Facebook. I think we're up to about 800 people that come in and check it out daily and post questions and comments and photos. And I'm learning from you guys. So it's, you know, it's mutually beneficial, and it's a great place to be. So check that out. And also Instagram. I think we're posting some good visual stuff there. Instagram's a visual thing. Again, at shorttermrentalsecrets.com. Tiffany Lee, you love that idea. Thank you. Hi, Richard. Amazing community. I love the firsthand knowledge and open sharing of best-in-class ideas. Have you ever considered the idea of short-term rental meetup for networking? We have indeed. We've been talking about it. You know, it's a very interesting process, and I give Charles a lot of kudos for this. Again, he sort of runs the media and sort of the. I develop a lot of the content, but he distributes it and the pace of it. And so it was his idea to go to 3 days a week, or maybe it was mine. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. But the point is, he has a lot of influence, even though he's behind the scenes. And I want to give him a shout out and credit. And he's the man. So thank you, Charles. And so we've talked a lot about having meetups. We've talked about having an event or a conference. And until we actually know what the purpose is and what the message is and what we're going to do there, we don't want to do it just to do it. We want to do it and have it be really impactful and meaningful. And we're working on all sorts of things like that. And again, the main thing that we want to make sure that we do in all of this is add tremendous value, right? Like, we don't want to just get together and have some beers and socialize. People can organize that themselves independently of us. But to the extent that we as moderators or content providers or thoughtful people can add real unique value and bring people together that are drawn to that value, then we will do it. But I'd like to see something happen. I've been pushing for 2017, likely happening sometime in 2018, right, Charles? Let's see. Love the meetup idea, just tuning in, Valley Music Store. Is it over? It's not over, man. Valley Music Store, you know the deal. Till the music stops, it's not over. How often do you have to visit the property if you're located 1,000 miles away? You know, again, that's a really personal thing. I take the time and energy to find, train, and then the key thing is retain talent in each of my remote properties so that I do all of the heavy lifting and upfront work like once, and then I continually support. I add guidance and counseling and check-in and so on. But turnover, you know, I run a few businesses sitting here in Singapore. John's an entrepreneur. I think the single largest cost in any business, the largest expense, is turnover. And so I spend as much time and energy up front, finding the right people, hiring the right people, investing in them, rewarding them, paying them fairly, so that I have as little turnover as possible. And as a consequence to that, I actually don't have to travel to those locations more than I desire. And that desire is a critical component of my why, right? Like, one of the things that I said to John when I was contemplating about this investment in Bali was, you know, for the first time in my life, I don't answer to anybody. I have no boss. I have no wife. And so as a consequence, the decision's entirely up to me. And that was sort of empowering, and I thought about it. And so I don't want to be beholden to my real estate either. Like, I must go check in, so on. I want to go to the places that I own when I need to, when I want to. It tends to be seasonally adjusted. So Colorado is a great ski area. There's a good chance I'll visit Colorado when it's ski season. That's why I own it. Let me see here. What time is it, by the way? John, do you know what time it is?
9:36.
Okay, so we have a little bit more time. Maybe another 10 or 15 minutes. I mean, I'd love to keep going, but you know, there's things to do and everyone's got opportunities elsewhere. Let's see. Do we have any more questions? I'm scrolling up. I'm sure I've missed some on the up. Thank you. Like your channel very much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. What is my occupancy rate? I think we talked about that. Best way to protect your assets, Robert. I think we talked about that. Let's see. You keep learning from us and inspired. Thank you so much. Okay. Guys, time to ask some questions. Charles, posting Tiffany's question down here. Do you recommend getting a first property near your home? Yeah, that's actually a great question. The answer is, all things being equal, yes, because the proximity really helps, especially as you're getting used to it and you're going to find the desire to check in more frequently and be more hands-on. So to the extent that you've never owned rental real estate property, then I think proximity does make a lot of sense. That said, my very first real estate property I ever bought was about 2 hours outside of my primary home, which I thought was close enough that I could get there at nights or on weekends. I worked full-time. I was an employee of a financial institution, and for me, that 2 hour distance was close enough. But if I were to, that's a personal thing. If I were to advise somebody else, I would suggest doing it closer. And then I would also suggest to try and give yourself enough room, right? Don't let this thing take over your life, that you're there all the time and you're checking on it constantly. Like our children, we want to give them enough encouragement and support and eventually set them free. Don't be beholden. And actually, I was sharing with Charles right before I left that some of my more challenging real estate, Airbnb real estate properties tend to be the one that are closest. And it's ironic because you would think that the ones that are further are harder, but maybe I do a subconscious effort to find better teams or pay a little bit more or something because I know it's so far. And yet when it's closer, maybe I'm just not doing it quite the same level, or the places where, you know, close to me is in New York City. And so there's a lot of upward mobility and people are constantly looking to make more money and things like that. And so there's some challenges there. So just don't think that proximity is the end all be all. It's a good rule of thumb. I would definitely recommend, if you've never been a real estate landlord before, to start, you know, close, but then make a conscious decision that over some period of time, you're going to pretend like it's 2,000 miles away and you can't go there every time there's a problem. Because until you make that adjustment and hire the team or teams or people or identify it, it could literally like take over your life. And you don't want that to happen because then you'll end up owning one. Let's see here. Any ideas for further monetization using guests during their stay, Airbnb experiences? Great information. Love the transparency. Thank you, Jim. William, you're doing a great job. Thank you. Guys, you know, thank you. I really appreciate it. One of the videos that we want to film when we get back are, you know, in business, and I view Airbnb and real estate as a business. I think that's a good methodology. I said to my new partners in Bali, I was like, guys, this is a lifestyle brand we're creating. It's got a lot of personal meaning. We all want to go here and do yoga and surf and so on and so forth. I said, but let's just realize that, you know, I'm taking assets that I could use for other business ideas, and we need to have a return on investment. So as much as we want to be really cool about it, and we want to be cool with the community and the contractors and each other, fundamentally, it has to be a business, and as such, we need to give it the respect that a business requires. And so when I think of real estate and Airbnb as a business, there's two things business faces, which is customer acquisition, right? How do we get people into our store, into our Airbnb? What's the cost of acquisition? And then the second thing that you take a look at is the lifetime value of that customer. So if you're just doing something like booking.com, I think is very transactional. Somebody comes, they stay at your home, you may never see them again. That's, you know, a low lifetime value. On Airbnb, personally, I have a lot of people that have given me 5-star reviews and say that they want to come back and I'm the only place they're going to stay. In reality, I think I've had repeat guests twice, and I think it's a challenge in large part because of the calendar and availability. In other words, even though they may be looking for my place or they want to stay in my place, and I've had people reach out to me directly, somebody else has booked it. So there's not that much lifetime value, but there is branding, right? Like somebody might be introduced to one of my properties, like it, go visit another property of mine, and then go to my Bali property. So that's something that's important, and you want to keep that. But to answer your question very directly, William, I think that one of the things that we can do better is monetize the value of the guest while they're currently with you. And so some of the value-added services you could do is provide transportation. I'm staying in an Airbnb in Rome on the 15th, and she messaged me, would I like her to arrange for a car to pick me up at the airport and so on. Maybe she's doing it out of, you know, goodwill. Maybe she's doing it because she wants a 5-star rating, or maybe the taxi driver or, you know, whatever car driver is giving her €5. I don't really know, but you can do that. You can do catering. You can have daily cleaning. You can have fresh flowers. You know, I know a lot of people love to have fresh flowers in the home. It just adds a lot. I mean, if you don't do that already, maybe you should, but there's just opportunities to think about the guest experience in your home, in your native environment, that could add value to it. Maybe there's a local tour and you partner with that. If there's wine tours, a brewery tour, a coffee roasting tour, work with those people, put, you know, that information in your guidebook, develop an affiliate relationship with those local people. They're going to love you sending business their way. And typically the way this all works is, you know, reciprocity, and you don't necessarily need to ask for money up front. You know, I often like to do things, prove my value to them, and then once it's working, say, hey, you know, what can we do? So I wouldn't walk into a brewery and say, I command $10 for every person I send your way. You're likely going to be shown the door. But if you're like, hey, you know, I have 100 guests or 200 guests that come through my doors every year, and they're here to do this, that, the other. I think they'd really enjoy your whitewater tour. You know, can we work together? If I send them your way, can you give them some special treatment? Maybe it's a free lunch. Maybe it's a glass of wine at the end of the thing. Whatever it is, get the guests happy. Then the business will realize what the value is that you're providing, and then you can transform it over time to a financial relationship. But if you sell anything directly in Airbnb in your home itself, like catering, a chef night, or whatever, like, you know, actually doing something, I think you can monetize it and make more money. And so one of the things that I think we need to focus on as a community is increasing the value of the guest stay while they're in our homes. All the hotels do it. They have the mini bars, they have, you know, concierge services and so on. And there's a real, in my opinion, the way this industry is moving towards, there's going to be this new hybrid model, right? I think the really huge hotels don't go away, but they become less relevant over time. And things are going to transition towards like what we're building in Bali, which is sort of what they call them here is homestays, Airbnbs, boutique hotels. You don't have all of the services, but you have some or enough. Things like daily maid service, there's a lot of guests that would pay for, and you could monetize. So I've been thinking a lot about it, and I'm sure we're going to create a video with, you know, some ideas that people can do quickly and easily to increase the revenue associated with every night of rental stay in your home. Let's see. Because there's so much firsthand experience, is there an opportunity to have you or your team evaluate deals, an Ask Richard type of scenario? You'd pay money for that service. Hey, Eric, thank you. You know, we get asked a lot about this stuff, people looking to us to evaluate their Airbnb listing and give them advice on how to increase the conversions and the pricing and deals and so on. Why don't you go to Facebook and direct message me, and we'll see what we can do. We want to be helpful, and you know, the only challenge is spread pretty thin. I got a lot of things on my plate, but we want to be helpful, certainly. So direct message me, and we'll see what we can do. Anybody else? Any other questions? So I'll just give you a little bit of an update on my 55 epic day plan while somebody gets the nerve to ask the question that they've always wanted to ask me. I'm here in Singapore today. John and I are going to film his place for his listing. You have to see it. It's absolutely gorgeous. He's done such a good job. And then we're going to do a little bit of filming on things that are going to be on the short-term rental channel, like the value of teamwork and how to work together. Again, that's new for me. I've done all my real estate deals independently, actually with my ex-wife, so this is a new opportunity. But we're going to film that. And then we're going to go to his office. He's got a team of 60 algorithmic traders. They're market makers, and they provide liquidity to financial institutions. As I said earlier, he and I went to college together, and then we worked at the same firm, which were in the pits. They don't exist anymore, but that was like, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, when all these nuts like he and I were kicking and screaming and pushing and doing hand signals. And now he's taken it to, basically a super high-tech computer-based environment. He's got 60 quants, I don't know, coding and trading. How many trades do you do in a day, or how do you quantify it?
Oh, about thousands.
Thousands and thousands of trades here. This is the man. If you, they can't see
exactly.
it, right?
This is better.
It's right, exactly. He's so good you can't see him. No, but anyway, so we're gonna go. He wants me to speak to his team a little bit about sort of entrepreneurial journeys and also innovation within entrepreneurial stuff, right? Like I didn't start my entrepreneurial career with a YouTube channel on short-term rental secrets. I started it in a very, hands-on 24/7 business, saw some opportunities, changed, pivoted, and kept going and trying new things. And, I think that's really empowering to employees and culture, embracing risk, embracing failure, trying different things. And, and what he's doing in particular, he has to be faster and better than everyone else. And it's like crazy stuff, and I can't speak to it, but I said to him something I thought was intelligent. I was like, oh, I read that proximity to servers on the exchange is really important. And he said, yeah, like, oh yeah, that was so 2012 or something, like that's been arbed out decades ago. So they do crazy stuff. They have to innovate faster than everyone else. And for whatever reason, he wants me to go speak to his team, which I'm happy to do. And then later today, I depart. I fly to Doha, which is Qatar. And then I'm going to Rome. And then in Rome, I'm taking a few personal days to enjoy some time with a lady friend. And then after that, I go back to Rome and I meet my kids, and we do the Tour de Mont Blanc, which is a 110-mile hike over 10 days, so about 11 miles a day, carrying our packs, staying in not Airbnbs, they call them huts, but it's a combination of small hotels, bed and breakfasts, hostels, like whatever that little mountain village is up at elevation. My 3 daughters and I are going to be, physically challenging ourselves, mentally challenging ourselves, and enjoying our time together. We're going to be off grid as much as I can be off grid, which means I'll just be flying my drone occasionally and documenting as much as possible and hopefully uploading at night. But that's it. And then that brings me back to the United States at end of August, and then I think I'm going to spend Labor Day checking out opportunities in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Let's see here. It looks like a Dateline 2020 anonymous interview subject. It is. Like this guy, he's wanted by all his competitors. I've developed beyond pricing for my listings on Airbnb, but I can't find that on VRBO. It becomes a big mess. I have beyond pricing on my Airbnbs. I know Ian very well. He's told me that it's live on VRBO and HomeAway. I just haven't activated that. I'll probably play with that when I get back in September. But for any of you who haven't turned on beyond pricing, I highly recommend it. I think Charles released the video of the product review earlier this week. It's put literally thousands and thousands of dollars in my pocket for every single listing for doing absolutely nothing other than logging in and syncing the two. It takes 7 minutes. It's the best use of my time and hopefully yours too. You must have a new camera. Any tips on finding financing for short-term rental held in an LLC? Been told regarding the LLC a lot. Yeah, Tiffany, I mentioned that earlier. For me personally, I had to get a recourse loan, a mortgage in my own name, and then transfer the mortgage after some period of time. I'm sorry, not the mortgage, the deed after some period of time into a newly formed LLC, which gives me the liability protection that I seek. Nobody's going to loan me non-recourse money. You know, I'm a small player. Maybe that changes over time, but you know, it's one of the rules that exist, and so I have to get recourse loans and qualify on my own. And so far, I've been able to qualify for all of them. I've hit some hurdles when I got up to, I think it was 4 properties, and then 5 properties, and then 6 properties. They're like, how many personal properties do you need? And the good news is there's no rule, right? So you just have to find a bank and a banker that's willing to work with you and take that credit risk, but get used to getting told no a lot, right? Like as an entrepreneur or a real estate entrepreneur or Airbnb, no is actually your friend, right? Because the more no's you hear, the closer you are to getting that yes. Don't expect a yes the first time. It's not that easy. Get used to getting no'd, get comfortable being no'd, view that as a sign of strength, go deep to your why, keep moving forward, and you'll get that yes. It's always worked for me. Okay, I think great channel. Thanks for sharing the knowledge. Dave, my pleasure. William, great tool. I agree. Looks like you guys are lagging. All right, well, listen. I'm going to sign off. I'm going to enjoy my time with John. We're going to film a little bit more content here in Singapore. If you guys haven't been to Singapore, it's beautiful, it's clean, it's safe, it's incredibly efficient. I showed up at probably the largest airport I've ever seen with the most unbelievably massive immigration, section. It had to be like 3 football fields. And I was like the only guy. I don't even know what happened to the people on my plane. My plane was full, but they all like scattered. They went somewhere else. And so I had this huge open airport to greet me. And then in that efficiency, they checked my bag, like literally getting off the plane. They checked my bag through cameras. Then when I got my bags from baggage claim, they checked all the bags, including my handheld bags again. They found my drone, which I'd called and made sure was legal. And it was legal, but they pulled me aside into the small customs area, which is, kind of scary, but I have nothing to hide. They were cool with it. They were like, listen, there's no problem here. We just need some documentation, some paperwork. And they took down my name and my passport number and the model number and the serial number. And they gave me like their rules, and I had to sign some stuff. And they gave me my drone and I left. So really cool, very efficient, beautiful, super impressed with this shop house or brownstone and this neighborhood, and excited to go check it out. So I really thank you all for joining. I really thank you all so much for your participation, your feedback, your comments, your questions, your advice and suggestions, not only for us on the YouTube channel, but if you're not on that Facebook group, go over there, request access. Again, it's a private group, shorttermrentalsecrets.com, and also check us out on Instagram. And until we see you soon in the very near future, I wish you happy hosting. Have a great day, everyone, or great night. Take care.